When Epic released Reload in June of 2024, it launched with a bang. There was so much hype around this game mode that some people even complained that viewers prefer to watch Reload content over Battle Royale. For the last 2 years, Reload has held player counts that exceed almost every single other game mode. Even though the player counts are still high, the community sentiment around Reload's latest updates are not. Players believe Epic's latest decisions on the meta and even the design of the map are actively hurting the quality that people can expect from Reload. So in today's video, I'm going to cover the rise and fall of Reload. When Reload was introduced on June 22nd, 2024, it was an instant success. This is crazy as Reload was only made in 1 month. Development for this mode started around late May during the rec season of Chapter 5. Yeah, no wonder Epic was trying to create something to bring in players. I would say this is more speculation, but Epic pulled out all of their resources when promoting this game mode. They got many popular streamers at the time to film advertisements for this game mode, like Sketch, Kaisanat, or other AMP members. They were trying to make sure this game mode was successful on launch. They also used one of their favorite forms of promotion, nostalgia. Like Epic has done in the past, they used the interest of Chapter 1 returning to hype people up for this game mode, and it worked. I can't describe to you guys how much hype there was around the game mode. There were so many people streaming it over Battle Royale that people in the community were complaining that viewers wanted to watch Reload more than Battle Royale, so anyone not streaming Reload would see less viewers. I've never seen anything like this in any game before or since. The hype around Reload was something else, but was it justified? Absolutely. But to discuss why Reload became successful in the first place, we need to break down the main 3 elements of it into 3 categories: the mechanics, the maps, and the guns. First, how does Reload even work? Well, as the name implies, this game mode allows you to respawn. In team modes, as long as anyone on your team is alive, anyone who's eliminated will respawn after a certain amount of time. If your teammates get eliminations while you are waiting to respawn, the timer will be reduced. In solos, you spawn with 2 reboots. After reboots end, you gain 50 overshield for each reboot you have remaining for a total of 100 overshield. Around 10 minutes into a match, a timer indicating reboots will end soon will start. At around the 11.5 minute mark, reboots will end. When you're rebooted, you spawn in with 100 wood and a great AR. The overall matches last around 15 to 18 minutes compared to the 20 to 25 of Battle Royale. These numbers can change as competitive games can run to heal off or the final zones, while regular public matches will finish faster due to people dying quicker. Oh, and there is one mechanic that originally wasn't in Reload that Epic did add to the ranked version of the mode: Siphon. This isn't the original version of Siphon that we all came to love, as it only grants 75 health over 5 seconds, but it is better than nothing. Now that we know the mechanics of the game mode, how are the maps? The first map to be featured in this game mode was Venture, a Chapter 1 inspired map which contained POIs like Tilted Towers and Retail Row. The map was significantly smaller than a regular Battle Royale map, but to accommodate this size, the player count was reduced to 32 players per match. This also meant the storm would close faster, meaning the matches only lasted about 15 to 18 minutes. Going back to the Venture map, it brought back many iconic locations such as Tilted Towers and Retail Rows, while including a couple new locations that fit the theme of Chapter 1 such as Sandy Sheets and Lazy Laps. Seeing as this was right after the Chapter 4 season OG and before an OG game mode would be permanent, this was perfect to launch Reload, as it brought many eyes to the game mode. This map was so good that Epic even did the same thing a year later with the launch of Blitz. Moving on to the second map for Reload, it's Oasis. We're still pulling from the Chapter 1 island as the map is themed around the desert area that surrounded Paradise Palms on the original map. This was another amazing map for the game mode. There are so many smaller locations and buildings that you can land at, which helps make you respawn it as the match goes on a bit better, as usually most of the POIs are already looted. The theming is just perfect. The colors, landscape, and elevation all playing to making this a pretty diverse map. I can land anywhere and usually find enough loot to win the game. The map is overall well designed, and I believe this is better than Venture. But the next map Epic decided to drop should be put in a Hall of Fame somewhere. Epic decided to pull from the Chapter 2 map this time, but not the POI you would first think of. They didn't pull from Steamy Stags, The Agency, Stark Island, or any of the other iconic POIs from the Chapter 2 map. They pulled from Slurpy Swamps, an okay POI on the original map, but this version, dropped for Reload, is one of the best maps they've ever dropped for anything ever. This is a well designed map. The idea of Slurp being present on a good portion of the map means you can find heals relatively easily. You often can save any heals you loot as there are plenty of barrels and slurp water in the center of the map. Even outside the swamp, you have steamy stacks being brought back and dirty docks. However, Epic really outdid themselves with bringing back some of the smaller, unnamed locations such as Stilttown, Boomin' Base, and Logjam Login. I can't express enough how well this map is designed. The map was loved by everyone, so much so that for the last year, this was the map featured in all Reload competitive tournaments, including the Pro-Am LAN. At this point in the timeline, Epic had outdone themselves with some of the best designed maps ever, 3 back-to-back maps that everyone loved that got better with each drop. A clear identity was starting to form for Reload. Although it is a fast-paced game mode, it's also a celebration of Fortnite's history with maps themed around older locations and a loot pool that brings back older weapons. Surely, Epic can't mess this up, right? So, everything I said about there being a clear identity to Reload gets thrown out of the window with their next map, Squid Grounds. To address the elephant in the room, I think collabs should not be in Reload except for one situation. If it's a beloved collab season, think of Stark Island from the Chapter 2 Season 4 map, or even the Simpsons mini-season. These could be themed Reload maps and honestly they would work. Reload seemed to have been a celebration of Fortnite and these were some of people's favorite seasons, so these coming back into Reload makes sense. What doesn't make sense is having a collab map with an IP that hasn't even been in Fortnite before. Looking at the map itself, it's fine I guess. It's not a horribly designed map, but I think there is some potential for a better map here. Red Greens, name aside, is one of my favorite POIs for any Reload map. I like the layout and design of the buildings. It reminds me of Chapter 4 with the colors and some of Chapter 5 with the building design. This POI more than any other makes me wish we just got a Chapter 4 Season 1 themed map around the Autumn Castle biome. Heck, we even got a map like this for Blitz and it looks beautiful. Phony Crossroads is just brilliant. The idea that there's a city where the cars and even bushes are fake to keep up an illusion is an amazing idea, and seeing Phony Crossroads come back is nice. I don't really have a problem with the right side of the map, but some of the other POIs to the left of the map are just so forgettable. Off the top of my head, Costly Condos, Manager Meals, and Player's Power are all bland and gray forgettable POIs that just blend together. The gimmick with this map were the minigames underneath some of the POIs that would grant better loot. Now, in Battle Royale where the games last longer and there's a longer mid-game, this would work. But in Reload where there is constant action, these minigames just don't work. People often didn't play them, and even if they did, this just breaks the fast-paced action of Reload. This map is okay, but compared to the first 3, this is nowhere near the level of those maps. After this point, I did start to lose interest in the game, so I moved over to Battlefield 6 for a bit. During my little break, Nightmare Island was released. Because I haven't played this map, I can't really cover it in too much detail, but I can at least talk about the design. This map does look great. This seems to have pulled from what Epic generally does for Halloween when theming the Battle Royale map. Towards the top, we have the return of a Grim Gates area, which features the underworld dashes. This is a great addition as it allows for more mobility and even the idea of dropping mobility items. Sometimes it's hard to balance having enough heals and mobility while still using fun weapons, so having dashes allows someone to swap impulses for a hunting rifle for example. Moving down, we see a haunted version of Happy Hamlet. I love seeing Happy Hamlet come back and hope to see it again, maybe in another form. Moving down again, we see Revenge Reels and Retail Ruin. This entire map is just genius. I think the concept of a holiday themed map is great. For Reload, I believe a Christmas map would be really cool to have at some point in the future. The general map flow of having more of an underworld area, transition to some dark green forest, and ending at some towns and a more open plain area is just great. I hope this map comes back for Halloween this year so I get a chance to experience it, especially because I love landing at Risky Reels and any of the other remakes of it. Sadly, we then get one of the worst maps for Reload, Surf City. With this map, we really saw a big issue form. I believe starting with Nightmare Island, we started to see items from the current Battle Royale season come to Reload. I'm not a big fan of this, but Surf City took this to the next level. Not only did we get new items from the current Battle Royale season added to Reload, we also had a map themed around a couple POIs from the new season. There are even a couple POIs from said season added to the Reload map. This was not a good idea at all. I get Epic wanted to make the maps feel connected and chapter launches are meant to be big, however, if someone doesn't like the new Battle Royale season and would prefer to play Reload, they would be out of luck. The actual map is okay though. Looking at the map, it seems to be about 50% Battlewood Boulevard. South Studios is also pulled from the Chapter 7 Season 1 map. Towards the top we have Divey Dam, which is actually a nice looking POI. I will say that above this POI seems to be barren. Another POI could be added here that would help add more loot to the map. The map only has 6 POIs, a far cry from the 8 to 10 that most maps before had. This map doesn't look too bad overall, but the lack of POIs and the fact that it launched with Chapter 7 hurt the map. This brings us to today. The most recent map for Reload is Elite Stronghold. This map launched with an abysmal 5 POIs. Looking outside of those POIs, there initially was very little loot. Luckily, Epic is taking steps to make this map better as they added more loot outside of the POIs. This map seems to have taken inspiration from Chapter 5 and 6, even though some devs mention Chapter 3 as an inspiration. I like the biomes they included, but I do think some color would look nice on this map. I get this is supposed to have a more serious feel to the map, but I think the gray and white makes everything blend in together. I think if they did something like the OXR theming, which had orange as a primary and gray as a secondary, it would have made the map look better visually. As the map is new, I still am figuring out what I like and don't like about it. There are teleporters to get around the edge of the map, and there are multiple OXR super paths. All good changes for sure, but I do wish there were a couple more POIs added. That covers all of the maps, but we still need to look at one aspect before we get into what is causing a lot of backlash for Reload. The loot pool is something that is constantly changing. Due to this, I won't go into detail in this video about it. Long story short, Reload used to feature many weapons from Fortnite's catalog that were not featured in Battle Royale, such as the charged shotgun and hunting rifle. This was a great way for people to experience older weapons or just even mess around with these items. With the launch of Chapter 6 Season 4, it seemed that Epic slowly started adding new weapons that were being featured in the current Battle Royale seasons. Then we got Chapter 7, where it seems the meta is generally very similar to Battle Royale. I believe this was a step back for Epic. This firmly pushed the original identity of Reload to the side and made it seem like this was a way to make all of the modes cohesive and just advertise the main Battle Royale experience. Now that we've looked at all of the aspects of Reload and a bit of its history, what happened to it? Well, there are a couple things that Epic has done that the community doesn't like. The quality of the maps have gone down. We are now seeing Reload maps launch with only 5 to 6 POIs, half of what Slurp Rush and Venture featured. We are seeing more and more items from the current Battle Royale seasons come to the game, removing some of the identity Reload had. There's also some annoyance with some of the Reload features, so what can Epic do to make Reload a better experience? Well, here are 3 things that can be fixed to put Reload in a better spot. First, we need better maps. When Epic designs maps that celebrate older seasons, they usually turn out really well. The first 3 Reload maps are usually towards the top of people's lists when they rank all of the maps, and for good reason. Epic did an amazing job pulling from older Battle Royale maps to create some iconic and well designed maps. I think if Epic continues to go that direction and add more than 5 POIs, then I think that'll cover them on the map side of things. Next, the loot pool. It's hard because I get where Epic is coming from. The reason we have some weird metas is because Epic wants to diversify the loot pool for Reload. They have a wide range of weapons that they can pull from. I think where Epic is going wrong with the loot pools is in 2 areas. 1, we don't need weapons or items from the current season or even chapter. I can be okay with something from last season being in the Reload loot pool if it's not in the current season, but I would love if nothing from the current chapter is added until the next chapter starts. This would help establish an identity for Reload and give a place for those who don't like the current chapter or season. On top of this, I think Epic needs to be careful with what items are in the meta. Although they have a wide range of weapons, not all of them are good. Some are weak while others might be overpowered. I think having the more fight weapons in every meta is fine as it means we'll always have a strong pump shotgun, which is fitting for this mode. I do like when they bring older weapons back like the hunting rifle. I'd be okay with some of the wackier items like inflatable or the railgun. There just needs to be a balance of reintroducing older weapons and keeping some consistency in what weapons we have to give a nice balance. The last thing I think needs to be improved on is the respawn mechanic. Reboots don't end until 11.5 minutes into the match, and with games lasting about 15 to 18 minutes, this means that if you respawn towards the end of reboots being active, you are essentially given 100 wood and a great AR when everyone is about to go into endgame. And before anyone says it, going for supply drops is hit or miss. Often, you get pushed in higher skill lobbies as people generally know you're weak if you're going for supply drops. Otherwise, you'd probably be W keying. I think at the very least, we should spawn in with a stack of 3 minis, 100 wood, 100 brick, and 100 metal. and a great AR with a great pump or whatever hard-hitting shotgun is in the meta. This does not seem overpowered and at the very least gives someone a fighting chance other than trying to hop into someone's box with a great AR. I would also like to maybe see some kind of invincibility when you respawn for like 5 seconds. It'll help out when you're in higher skill lobbies or in games with pro players, as you won't be farmed repeatedly when you're trying to drop down. That's all Epic really has to do. I understand if Epic wants to implement any of these, it would take time as EWC and competitive tournaments for Reload are underway. I am interested to see if any changes come from the recent backlash to Reload in the coming months. We did see some loophole changes, so maybe we'll see a bit more stuff done to Reload to put it in a better spot. Epic was able to drop an amazing game mode with an amazing run of maps once, so I believe if they're given time, they can cook up a couple decent maps and metas. But that's all I have for today's video. If you liked the video, click the like button and comment down below your opinions about Reload. Do you like the new map and meta, or do you think they need to update the meta to align with previous metas people loved? If you missed it, I made a video covering the rise and fall of Blitz in Fortnite, and you can check it out by clicking on the screen now.